Okay, so that was part one, and now this is part two of the video lesson on domain and range. In part one, we talked about the domain and we identified the domain for all of these graphs remember, the domain is all possible inputs or x values. So we looked at x going from left to right. What is the possible, what are the boundaries, right? What's the farthest left and what's the farthest right that they can go? Or the lowest x value and the highest x value. Now we're going to look at range, and range is like the domain, but instead of the inputs, we're looking at the outputs or the y values. So what are all the possible y values? What are all the possible outputs? And it's very similar. So we could say for this graph, let me zoom in a little bit closer here. What are the possible values for y on this graph? Here's our graph right here. This is the line, this is the graph we're talking about. What are the possible y values? Well, it looks like the lowest y value is down here at -4. Kind of looking at our boundaries now, instead of looking from left to right, we're looking up and down because that's what the y values go on. They're up and down axis here. So what's the lowest y value and what's going to be the highest y value for this graph? Okay, so it looks like the lowest y value, the lowest part of this graph is -4. And what's the highest y value? Well, it goes all the way up to +5 here. So the y now for domain, we're going to have y in the middle instead of x. Y goes from -4 to +5. So it looks very similar to how we wrote the inequality for domain, except y is in the middle. The arrows are still pointing to the left. We're saying y goes from -4 to +5. Now I made one mistake here because, like before, we're just going to have to look at the open and closed. The -4 here, this is closed, so this should be a solid line, and this should be closed on the bottom by drawing that line here. But on the top, it was open. This is an open circle, so I should have made this an open, a dashed line, and this side should stay open because it never quite reaches 5. That open circle means it's not quite equal to it. And that's the range for this graph. So instead of looking left to right, like with domain, we're looking up and down. That's the range. Okay, how about this second graph here? What's the lowest it can go? What's the highest it can go for our y values? Well, it looks like the lowest it can go is right here at -3 for y. We're looking at the y values now. -3 for y. Y goes between -3 and what's the highest it can go? Oh, looks like at +3. Y goes from -3 to +3. And are they both closed? Yeah, they are. So let me close these here. And that's the range of values, the range of y values for this graph. Let's take a look at this one. I'll try to keep this video a little bit shorter than I did on the first one. What's the range of y values here? What do you think? Looks like the highest you can go, maybe you'll look at that first, is +2. Okay, so that's going to be on this side. Remember this, we go from low to high. So y goes up to +2, and what does it go down to? What's the lowest value? This point's lower than that point, so it actually goes down to -3. -3 is the left side of our range. Okay, so again, we're just looking at bounding. What are the boundaries for this graph from up and down? All right, let's take a look at a few more. and then hopefully you get the idea here. So what's the range of this graph? A little bit tricky because it's got this curve, right? This is not a function. If we did the vertical line test, which is what I drew here with this green line, if we did the vertical line test, this is actually not a function because it would hit the vertical line twice, meaning there's more than one output. But anyway, the lowest value is actually here at 1. It looks like it's the lowest value for y. And what's the highest value? It goes up to 5. All right, excuse my writing noises on the videos. And are they both closed? Well, definitely this one's closed, right? This side's for sure closed. There's a dot there. It looks like it touches 1. It does touch it, so I'm going to close that side too. How about this one over here? Oh, this is an easy one. It's a line, right? What's the lowest and what's the highest it can go? If we're looking at these numbers on the y-axis. It looks like the lowest it can go is -5. And feel free, if you're doing this at home, if you're somehow able to print that out or kind of like write on it yourself, or just pause the video before I answer this. So let's see, y goes from -5 to +1 is the highest value. The y value goes +1. Are they both closed? Yeah, they are. So let me close these inequality symbols. All right, number 6, almost there. What are the highs and lows here? What are the boundaries? Okay, so the low boundary is right here. It touches. What's the y value on this axis? What's the y value? Look at the y values. If you remember, it's 0. It's actually 0 is the y value here. This is the height. And what's the highest value? It looks like this point is higher than that point. So the highest it goes is here. And I'm going to draw it with a dashed line because I see this open circle. So the highest it goes is 5. That's the highest that y will go. 5 I'm going to leave open because of the open circle, but 0 down this bottom line, I'm going to close it because it does touch it. It does touch that boundary. All right, last 3. Try to keep this short. What do we have here? So domain, we already got the domain left to right. Now let's do range down to up. So down, the lowest value is -3. Range is always with a y. -3 to +4 is the highest value here. Highest point, +4. This one's closed. This one is also closed. All right, take a look at these last 2. I want you to pause the video, think about it, see what you would say. What would you write as the range for these graphs? What's the lowest value? What's the highest value for y? All right. So what is y going to go from here? Let's set this inequality up. Y is going from -5 at the lowest to, how high does this go? +3. +3 is the highest value here. Does it touch both of them? Yes, it does. So I'm going to close this. Close both sides. How about this one? This check mark that shows that we're finished with this. Well, the lowest value is here. What's the y value on this x-axis again? Oh, the y value is... I'm going to have to move myself again. Move myself up here for now. Okay, so the y value in this last graph goes from 0 to +3. Does it touch both of them? Yes, it does. So it's closed on both sides. And that is what the range of these graphs would be, how you would write them. Okay, so hopefully you understand now what domain and range means, and could explain that and could identify it based on some graphs. What I'm going to ask you to do, as kind of the second part of this week's lesson, is practice this. I'm going to assign you something in Desmo so that you can do it on your phone or on your Chromebook if you need to. You don't have to print something out. I will provide a separate thing if you want to print something out and or to write it out, write it on a separate sheet of paper. I'll provide some other problems like these that you could write down and then just take a photo of and submit that in Classroom. But I'll also have some problems in Desmos if you want to do it that way instead. So I'm just going to have some graphs like these and try to have you, see if you can identify the domain and range for those graphs. I hope you all have a great week. Um, stay happy, stay healthy, keep in touch, and I'll see you next week.